Senator Rhiannon.
Thank you, Madam Acting Deputy Chair. I would like to share with my fellow senators information about an outstanding Australian, Robert D. Walshe. He's a resident of Sutherland Shire. He's an OAM, and his work has brought great benefit to many people and done outstanding work for the environment. Bob is the only person to receive the Sutherland Shire Citizen of the Year twice, once in 1995 for his work on the environment, then again in 2001 for his writing and support for being healthy in mind, body and spirit as we age. And these are values that he exemplifies in a most impressive and really quite a beautiful way. I think there's many lessons to be learnt for all of us. Bob had the opportunities to go to university in a generation at a time when it was much harder to achieve that. And from that time, he was politically active, organising meetings, drafting motions, carrying out extensive lobbying, speaking at public rallies, and I hear he was a fantastic public speaker. He was a beneficiary of Chifley's Commonwealth Reconstruction training scheme, and he gained entry to university and then went on to do honours in history at Sydney University. Now, then he continued with his studies, had a great passion for education and encouraging young people to develop their skills in a range of areas. And at this time, his interest in the environment grew. And he makes some really important contributions that really need to be on the record. He brought together about a dozen colleagues, including Milo Dunphy, in the early 1970s, when we really had what many have called the first stage of the environment movement. And this led to the establishment in 1972 of the Total Environment Centre, a centre that continues to do some very excellent work to this day. It was actually Bob's idea for the name Total Environment Centre, and they were able to fund Milo as the first director. Now, not satisfied with that contribution to environmental protection, Bob then went on to establish the Sutherland Shire Environment Centre. Now, I think, as we all know in this place, organisations come and go, but Bob with his, and Bob's, I think, has just turned 90 or is about to turn 90, Bob, with his incredible energy, the way he inspires people, organisations that he has got involved with, he's found the way to ensure that they are able to prosper and expand their activities, as is very much the case with this Environment Centre in Sutherland, where he and that centre have been active on a range of issues, including waste. The issue of nuclear waste is a big one for them, with Lucas Heights being in the Sutherland Shire. Then there's airport issues, big marine issues, the desalination, sand mining and overdevelopment, and particularly around the planning laws that were weakened both under the former Labor government, and we're seeing that continue under the O'Farrell government. He's been right on to that issue, doing the analysis, talking to people and writing articles. Another issue that he's taken up very strongly is the shooting in national parks. And through all this work, he's developed an incredible network of people that he's on first-name basis with a number of key political figures. And so he's been able not just to be doing the campaigning work, but to translate that into very effective lobbying in our governments. Another passion of Bob's, and I was very pleased to see this, how because we know that issues in our history are sometimes lost, or the full meaning of them can just fade away. And Bob has a real interest in the Eureka Stockade. And a few years back he formed the Eureka Stockade Committee, and now he and his colleagues in that organisation host an annual Eureka Stockade dinner. I've been to a number of them. They have some really excellent speakers, and it's a great opportunity to catch up with many people. And his interest in this area is reflected in one of the books he's written on Eureka and democracy. That was written in 2002, and he was actually invited to speak at Melbourne University's and Ballarat's sesquicentennial Eureka celebration, something that I know is very close to his heart, one because of his interest and passion, but also because of what Eureka has meant in Australia. Now, as I said, his work goes on, and he currently chairs the first National Park Committee, which is lobbying to have Royal National Park listed as a World Heritage List. And this is certainly a passion that I share with Bob. I did my own thesis when I studied botany in Royal National Park, and I've been down to, I often revisit the park and was down there with some of the people working on the first National Park Committee. Now, this is a great campaign. They've actually got a book out about their submission to be World Heritage listed, and they've already had one step forward in the success that I'm sure will come to this important project, with the New South Wales Government supporting the call for this park to be World, and it's actually associated parks, I should say, to Royal National Park, to be heritage listed. Now, throughout all this long life of activity, Bob has been a passionate educationalist and also a very prolific and well-published author. He writes in a number of forms, which in this day and age, and the digital age is with us all, I must admit I always enjoy because I know Bob's writing now. I open a letter and I know if it's from Bob, so we've still got the lovely handwritten notes, and he writes notes to people. He has special Christmas messages to family and friends. He writes a range of articles, commentaries. He's been known to write plays and history books. And this obviously goes back to his time when he was an English and a history teacher. And at that time he actually formed a company that specialised in educational books. But now what we're seeing is that this skill that he's really excellent in is something that he's continued, and he has some regular columns. He's a regular contributor to the St George Leader, often has been printed in the Sydney Morning Herald and in Shire Life, where he's had that column going on Royal National Park and the World Heritage Campaign and other environmental issues for 5 years. So it's a many people often describe their messages and their notes and their letters from Bob as treasures, and I certainly would agree with that description. In 2008 he received an OAM, and he continues to be in regular communication on a professional basis with leaders across, I think, most parties, as well as with councillors, general managers of councils, business people, writers. I imagine not a day goes by without Bob sitting down and writing in detail suggestions and ideas and concerns about a range of social justice and environmental issues. So I do very strongly congratulate Bob and all those involved in the committee that he's working with for Royal National Park to gain World Heritage listing, and congratulate him for all the work that he has undertaken. On another matter, I would like to speak tonight about the outstanding work undertaken by Vision 2020 Australia. Over the past 20 years, the world has made great strides in reducing the number of people who are needlessly blind or vision impaired. And this story really reminds us why we need an aid budget that is increased in size and not cut. Now, when it comes to the issue of vision impairment, there's many statistics to remind us how important this is. The global prevalence of all forms of blindness in the past 50 years, in those who are 50 years of age, has fallen by 1/3, from 3% in 1990 to 1.9% in 2010. Millions of people's lives have been improved by some of the simplest medical interventions available. But often the people who are doing it tough in life, who live in poverty, are not able to access this assistance. We know that reducing blindness and vision impairment can play a crucial role in reducing poverty and meeting the Millennium Development Goals that all countries, including Australia, signed up to. We also know that blindness in the developing countries often means decreased life expectancy and an even greater level of poverty that those people are exposed to. So while it is right for us to celebrate the progress made, we clearly can't be complacent or afford to believe that the problem has been solved because the number affected in this way is reducing. There's still much work to be done. The World Health Organization estimates that currently more than 220 million people worldwide are blind or vision impaired, and 90% of those live in developing countries, where our aid budget is so important. Now, you'd have to say that's an unacceptable figure, that 80% of all blindness and vision impairment is preventable or treatable. We know that. So clearly, these people need to be treated. And what I also find alarming, as we see when we look at so many aspects of poverty, women are overrepresented in these figures. Studies that suggest that nearly 2/3 of blind people globally are women. Yet in some countries they are only half as likely as men to be able to access eye care services. That is why Vision 2020 Australia, the peak body for the eye, health and vision care sector, have come together to develop a comprehensive strategy to realise the right to sight where possible and freedom from discrimination where it is not. I was fortunate to have a meeting with Vision 2020 Australia earlier this year, and it was very impressive, the strategy that they have developed to take this important work forward. They're calling for a 5-year commitment to take us closer to the end of avoidable blindness in Asia and Pacific, something that clearly is achievable when you look at the advances in medicine. For a total of $167.8 million, we could make a real impact on eye health and social exclusion in our region. And it's probably worth noting at this point that prior to the Coalition taking government, when they were in opposition, one of their criticisms of the aid budget was that it should concentrate more on the Asia-Pacific region. Now, if they actually looked at the figures, there is by far, I think it's already over an 80% concentration in the area. But if they want to be true to that statement, that's where they want to put their efforts. This is a program to get behind, a program that needs funding and a program that shouldn't suffer because of the cuts to the aid budget the Coalition said they're bringing in. And you'd have to say that that $167.8 million, it would be money very well spent. This is a program that's been thought out in great detail. Now, PricewaterhouseCoopers have found that for every $1 invested, $4 was returned to the economy, a return on investment that even the most hard-nosed would find impressive. So that's when that money is put into programs in low-income countries, and I believe in all countries, when you identify the programs that are needed to reduce blindness and vision impairment, put the money in, the economic benefits are there, and that means there for all society. For just $8.5 million, we could eliminate trachoma, the leading cause of infectious blindness in the world, and that's the money that's needed to eliminate trachoma from our region. Again, surely an objective that the government should take on in terms of our aid program. For $17 million, we could introduce eye tests and treatments into schools and make a real dent in the number of children, which currently runs at 500,000, 500,000 children who become blind each year. Like, again, startling figures, but when you put those figures against the money that's needed, you can see that it's money that would be so well spent. So we can see that there would be a knock-on effect here on school enrolment. The UN estimates that at least 1/3 of the 57 million children currently missing out on a primary education do so because they have a disability. Again, we know with targeted programs that could change. Reducing avoidable blindness would help get these children through the school gate and ensure that those with permanent vision loss can be properly targeted with support. Now, Australia has a good reputation in eye health, and we should build on this success in our region as a starting point. I do urge parliamentarians from all sides of politics to come together to develop awareness of the work of Vision 2020's agenda, to realise the right to sight and the right to participate for all. It's a program that's well detailed, and I would again argue that this work underlines the need for Australian aid budget to be increased in line with the commitment made in 2000 by Australia to raise our aid budget to 0.7% of gross national income. So I'm obviously aware that's not going to happen under this government, but let's put it on the record that it was the former Howard government that made that commitment, that in recognising the importance of the Millennium Development Goals, it was certainly linked with that budget increase. And that's something that we must not lose sight of.